For them to come back in overtime and win that game, holy crap. What a game for the Cougs. Now, this is the Cougs' MO. You'll remember against Texas A&M the first time they played him. Okay, my buddy's game over at Toyota Center. They blew the big lead against Texas A&M. Texas A&M bounces back and comes back. Yet the Cougs were able to hold on with a huge Emanuel Sharp 3 near the end of the game. Baylor. Huge lead at Baylor. Blow it. Go overtime. But the Cougs were able to bounce back. Iowa State, huge lead against them. Blow it. And yet the Cougs were able to right the ship and hold on and win that basketball game. They've done it time and time again. They know what it is to blow a lead. That's what they do. Well, nobody has more leads because if they're in a tight game, nobody has gone on more 10-0 runs than the Cougs this season. So they know how to build a lead. What they don't do well is hold that lead.
Well, and that's what happens when you don't shoot well. I mean, if you don't shoot well, you're not going to free throw shooting team. But I will say this: yesterday, their free throw shooting was okay. Their
free throw defense was tremendous.
Well, it was A&M shot so bad, like that game.
That they could have lost big.
They could have lost that game if A&M had shot free throws well. But Houston also, I mean, the officiating. Look, there was some stuff. The foul that fouled out. The foul that fouled out Jamal Shead, for example.
That's awful.
What did he do exactly?
That was awful.
It was just a bad. And then people complained about, rightfully so, the jump ball call that gave A&M the last chance. Houston grabbed the ball away from the guy from A&M, had his hands on it. Houston snatched it away. That's not a jump ball. There was no held possession by two people.
I'm not going to blame the refs. It was a good basketball game.
No, it was a good game.
It was a good game. Now, Cougs, listen, they went to
fouled 4 people out.
They went to the line 45 times. Boy, this is the anti-Colorado game. Colorado had to foul 3 times at the end.
4 times.
4 times. Yeah, they needed 4 fouls just to get to the 7 to put them on the line. This was the Marquette Colorado game was so clean. 75 free throws in this game. 45, and the Cougs just caught up at the end because they had to foul. Yeah. Otherwise, it was the disparity. The disparity was incredible.
4 fouled out Cougars, and you had 3 others with 4 fouls.
Did you see that stat? No team has won a tournament game with 4 guys that fouled out since 87.
Not a surprise.
No.
Not a surprise.
You can't win like that.
It kind of gets that. It helps that the other team didn't make free throws, and it helps that your team. Well, I mean, when you get down to the walk-on making free throws, that's a. When I heard, and Ryan Elvin comes to the game, I told my wife, this is the guy that people cheer for at the end of games when it's a blowout.
Yeah.
He's getting in, and then he got wide open, and there was no way a walk-on, even though he was 3 or 4 for the season coming in, there's no way he was going to make 2. That's too pressure packed.
Well, but he made that.
But he made one, which was big enough.
Yeah,
it was big enough to make one, and that was a margin of victory. I thought that some of the decisions by Buzz, some of the decisions by Kelvin were not great down the stretch. I thought Houston really, just wasn't great. From a coaching standpoint down the stretch. We can get into the 3-pointer that tied it up. There's just no reason any Cougar should have been anywhere in the paint. Like your feet shouldn't even been anywhere inside the standard area. You got to be standing on the 3-point line. I don't understand for the life of me why you would allow somebody to get picked and switched off. You're basically playing zone out at the 3-point line, and you make them go over the top of you and try to get a shot off. But coaches just don't. They just don't. It's so unconventional. They don't coach that way.
No, they shouldn't. You're right.
Kelvin is very, very, very conventional. He will not foul to try to create a situation where he's always afraid of 3 free throws, and he's a very, very conventional, conservative coach.
You play a zone, a prevent zone on the 3-point line. How Malik Wilson got caught back there, and they just basically rolled it out to Anderson Garcia.
It was a great inbound.
It was a great inbound pass, but how you get caught up if you're Malik Wilson on that thing, that was just incredible. But them hitting that shot and the Cougs able to Jamal Shead is such a war. He is such a great. He's one of the all-time great Cougs.
So I was listening on the radio. He really is. I was listening on the radio. I mean, I saw some great ones, and I didn't get to see Otis Birdsong play, Elvin Hayes. I didn't get to see those plays. I saw Phi Slam and Jamma, and I put Jamal Shead up there with Michael Young. I mean, you had Dream and you had Drexler. Michael Young was an All-American for, I think, 3 years. Michael Young was a phenomenal player, first-round draft pick by the Boston Celtics. And I would put Jamal Shead up there with him. He was a highly recruited shooting guard. Of course, his son played for University of Houston in the past as well. But Jamal Shead, everything about him, he's just his determination, his will to win, his ability to overcome adversity. I think it seeps out to the entire team.
Yep.
Because you hit that three-pointer, all that momentum is in your favor. You think, okay, here we go. We've got all the momentum. That just wasn't the case. Oakland coming back the other night, you thought they had the momentum against NC State. NC State strangled them in the overtime. University of Houston, they come back, A&M comes back from that deficit, and then they hit a three, and you think and Houston's got fouled out players, and you think everything's going against Houston. Guess what? Houston just took control of the overtime, and A&M wasn't getting back in that game. That's the mental toughness of a Kelvin Sampson.
That's so much fun.
And that's the mental toughness that Jamal Shead instills as the extension of Kelvin Sampson.
Listen, this team is different in that. Listen, we'll find out. Now, going forward, it's Duke and then possibly Marquette after that. Holy crap. This is going to be a great Sweet 16. Duke is playing better than they have all season long. We'll find out whether or not they can continue to do that. They were able to win that game. They destroyed James Madison. But you don't get here unless Emanuel Sharp has that game, and LJ Cryer as well. LJ struggled so mightily in the first, but he came up with huge threes in the second half. They are I trust this team more making shots than any other Coug team under Kelvin Sampson. Emanuel Sharp last night was fantastic, not only on the offensive end, on the defensive end as well. He was fabulous last night. That was the best game he has had. What a time for Emanuel Sharp to have his best game as a Coug. It was fantastic. Every time he shot, a lot of times you're like, oh, Emanuel, don't take that. Yeah, I wanted him to have the ball every single time down the court.
Yeah, a lot of confidence yesterday, and made some huge free throws. Good free throw shooter. I mean, he's over 80%. He's a good free throw shooter, but boy, you're right. They don't get there without him. Different people stepped up at different times of the game.
How about Ramon Walker coming in and getting that huge rebound after the fourth guy? After fourth guy fouls out, you got no big guys left. Listen, it's exactly what I said. It can't happen early on. You got Francis with 2 fouls in the first 10 minutes of the game. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh my goodness, Francis, you can't do this. They put in Sedloth. You realize we can't play 4-on-5. Sedloth is not ready for this. The guy's played. You hear Kelvin in one of the interviews. He goes, this guy didn't start playing basketball until he was 15 years old. He ain't ready for this. He ain't ready. So you're going to have to go small. J1 is playing in the middle about as big as some of his baskets. Robert's baskets, how fantastic. He uses the board as well as anybody we've seen. Like, you just don't use the board anymore. And J1 uses the board all the time on that shot. He was fabulous last night as well. And he had to do it in foul trouble all night long. Mm-hmm. He was in foul trouble most of that game. 6 from 6 from the field. Just fantastic. Now, they got to do something about the defensive rebounding. Because
it's become an issue, man.
It's killing them.
With Tugler out, they've really lost a lot of their board help that they needed. And this is something where the Houston used to dominate teams. They used to dominate teams there. Now, A&M is known as a good rebounding team, so it's not entirely
this is every team, though.
Surprising, but yeah, that's what I mean. It's for A&M to do it is one thing, but they're not controlling the boards. And there's only so many there's only so much you can do if your big's getting foul trouble and you lost one of your most important front court players. But you saw, there's elements of it where you think, well, Houston, if you look at it negative, you say Houston showed reasons why it's going to be hard for them to get to the Final Four because they don't, they're not, they lose leads, the flip side of that is this team had everything go against them. They were in foul trouble from the very beginning. It was crazy how many fouls went against the Houston Cougars first half and second half. And everything that could go wrong did go wrong. It was Murphy's Law as Kelvin Sampson. I don't know, did you hear Kelvin after the game?
Well, we'll hear him on the other side. How about that they were able to survive that game last night? Wow. Cougs led it by 5 at the half. But Kelvin knew it was going to be a war in the second half. And sure enough, they blew it open, and in the final minutes just frittered it away. But at halftime, Kelvin knew. And he called on the team. You saw the 32 patch on the jerseys. They've been wearing them all season long. For their teammate, Reggie Chaney, who died at just 23 years old. Reggie Chaney, I don't know that the details come out still. I looked it up last night, the cause, and I don't know. I hadn't seen why Reggie, if they have ever published why Reggie passed. But they've worn, these guys, Jamal Shead, J1 Roberts.
Fentanyl toxicity.
It was what?
Fentanyl toxicity.
So
2023 KHOU. So it was a reputable source that he had fentanyl toxicity. Fentanyl got him.
So Ryan Elvin, J1, and Jamal, were played with him for years, all of them, those three. And the other guys who had been here a couple of years, 3 years, have played with him as well. But they had 32 on their jerseys, and Kelvin told the team at the half that they had to be tough, like Reggie.
It's the first time I've done this year is that, we lost 4 starters from last year's team. Jarris Walker, Marcus Sasser, Shimon Mark, and then a special guy in Reggie Chaney. And I hadn't mentioned Reggie other than when we watched him on film, but I brought Reggie up at halftime. I said, what would Reggie do, J1? What would Reggie do, Javier? Because I didn't think either one of those guys played very good the first half. So I asked him about Reggie. And as soon as I said it, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Jamal got really emotional. Ramon got really emotional. So that one was for Big Rich.
That was, wow. You bring up their fallen teammate, and sure enough, they came out in that second half. They looked like gangbusters. Holy cow. They took it right to A&M. That line was started at 9.5, went down to 8.5. And sure enough, that's just too good a team to be given that many points, and they ended up covering. But for a while there, it looked like the Cougs were going to cover that.
I liked A&M plus the points. I thought it was way too high. It started at 10.5 was the overnight line, and then they went to 10, and they kept going down because it was just too much.
It was way too much.
It's just too much right now. If you've watched Houston, and you watched A&M. A&M's on the upside, and Houston is pretty much steady all the time. You kind of know who you're going to get, but A&M played them tough. Kelvin Sampson, after the game and the post-game interview, said this is his favorite Cougar team. Of all the teams he's coached, this is my favorite. Is it really?
Yep, this is my favorite team.
I probably had one, I think 2 years ago. Maybe the Final Four team. That would have been 3 years ago, wouldn't it? The Final Four team, I think.
They were Sweet 16 last year. I think the year before they were Final Four.
Was the year before they were Final Four 2 years ago? Yeah, it might have been 2. Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah. That might have been, I think, my favorite one with Reggie on that team, by the way. But regardless, Kelvin just loves coaching his team.
Yep.
Loves coaching his team.
Man, I wish Tugler was there. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. This would be a different story if Tugler was there. Okay, and one of the reasons this is my favorite team is because this is one of my favorite players in Cougar history. I don't have the history that I wasn't here in '83, but this guy he's got to have his number hanging on the rafters when he's done. Jamal Shead. Here is Kelvin talking about the difference in that basketball game last night.
They were at full strength and played well Texas A&M played great tonight. I mean, you can tell they're a lot better team than when we played them early. But as good as they play, we had the best player on the floor, Jamal Shead. And sometimes at the end, that's all you need.
When he fouled out, I thought, holy crap, how in the world? And he was playing with 4 for a while. This was I don't know if it was on your mind, but it was on my mind as well. That dude cannot leave this game. His jump stop shot to win the game, basically put the game away, where he had jumped in the lane, boom, and jumped back up and made that basket, was he was the only option at the time. Mm-hmm. Basically the only option at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, Cryer is out. Sharp is out.
I know.
What is he going to do?
But he never wavered. It never ever looks too big for him.
Nope.
I was listening to the broadcast at one point on the radio, and Tom Crean. First of all, Crean was jumping in on everything. Like, he was overcoaching it, frankly. I think one of the issues that we're having with Steve Lapham with Tom Crean on the radio is I'm always interested in the coach's perspective, but man, they are countering anything and everything that, like, it's almost too much what they're doing. Now, I thought Lapham made a good point about when A&M had a running start at the basket, and then Buzz Williams called timeout.
Yeah.
And, like, wow.
That was huge.
Yeah, it was a 4-point game, and you're thinking, man, if they score a quick 2, it's not like Houston is a great free throw shooting team.
That was huge.
I don't know why he called that timeout, and I thought that was worth pointing out. But Tom Crean couldn't stop talking about Jamal Shead. So this is why, for me, he's the best guard in the country. He said, because he doesn't, what he brings to the table offensively and defensively, when you need big plays, he makes big plays. And that actually is really, you can just sum it up. If you need a big play, Jamal Shead will get you a big play. And this is not new. He's been doing this for 3 years, and he's doing it again. He did it again yesterday. And now the Cougs go on to take on a Duke team that I thought James Madison was going to give Duke some issues. Holy crap. Duke kicked the living crap out of James Madison. Yeah. And now they're waiting for you in Dallas.
Yeah. How about this? Duke and Marquette. You got waiting for you? Possibly Marquette. Anyway, that is this is going to be fun this weekend. If they can survive this and get through this. A lot of people didn't believe in this team because of their offense. But, man, I'll tell you what. Emanuel Sharp grew up. And L.J. Cryer is a different – you know what? As bad as he was in the first half and didn't shoot the ball well, man, every time I couldn't wait for him to shoot again in the second half. He's been there, he's done it, he's won a national title. He wasn't a huge player in that national title run, but he knows what it takes. And this is his time now with Jamal Shead and Roberts. I think they get through Duke, and it's going to be just a battle against Marquette.